Hey y'all, I'm Brer Sam, and this is one of my movie reviews. For the past few days, I have been revisiting one of my absolute favorite movies, A Hard Day's Night. Yes, the Beatles' first movie. I just love this film so much. It is so funny. Yeah, and so I have decided to review it today, which I should have done a long time ago, but I am reviewing it now while drinking some sparkling water, peach flavored. So delicious. All right, so the story of A Hard Day's Night is that the Beatles they're playing themselves here, actually. And most singers just play characters, but the Beatles are acting as themselves. They start off on this train where Paul McCartney reveals that he's brought his grandfather along for the ride, and apparently the grandfather is a troublemaker, so he causes some trouble between the Beatles managers and not so much the band themselves, but he sure troubles them. Paul especially. I guess I would be embarrassed too if my grandfather were that ridiculous. So after the train ride, they get to this TV studio that they're supposed to perform at. And eventually the grandfather gets Ringo in a twist, and he just runs away from the studio, and of course the band has to get him back before showtime. So based on this brief synopsis, this film sounds incredibly generic, maybe, or even a basic story, maybe too basic, but for such a basic story, the Beatles make it unbelievably entertaining. Like, Ringo doesn't even leave the studio until, like, 3/4 of the way in. And before all that, you get some scenes with the Beatles flirting with some girls, and one of which turned out to be George Harrison's wife, Pattie Boyd. Yeah, he met his wife on the set of this film. That was really cool. John Lennon has this sort of banter with the manager. They didn't put Brian Epstein in there. They just had a guy be their fake manager. And quite often John says to the guy, "You're a swine." And my dad likes to quote that. He likes to quote a lot of scenes from this film, including the scene where the grandfather tricks Ringo into leaving the studio just to get him to go out and flirt with some girls before he's too old to do it. Yeah, that is a really funny scene. Yeah. That's just what the movie is. The Beatles are just sort of surrounded by older people, like their managers and Paul's grandpa and this TV director who's uptight, who seems to have won an award and wears a funny sweater that the actor actually owned. Yeah, that's where most of the humor comes from in here. The Beatles sort of teasing older people, or at least people who are older than them. And even some ladies who are seem about their age. Like, there's one scene where this girl thinks John is someone she knows until she puts her glasses on, and he's not. And actually, the lady who played that girl played the Baroness in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That was pretty cool. And in case some of you are wondering, they didn't have Paul McCartney's actual grandfather on the film. It was actually an actor. But a good actor, really. Like the frequent gag with the grandfather is that he's a very clean old man, which is actually sort of a nod to another character the actor played that was the dirty old man. I thought that was fun when I read about it. And there was one other thing in there that I thought was sort of an inside joke about Lennon and McCartney losing their mothers. Because they both lost their mothers when they were teenagers, but there are scenes where their mothers are mentioned like they're still alive. Like Paul says to his pals, "Oh, my mother thought a trip would be good for my grandpa, but she really couldn't have because she was actually dead." Sometime later, the manager says to John, "Lennon, put those girls down or I'll tell your mother." And he can't tell his mother. So yeah, it's sort of like in this universe, the Beatles have a whole different life than what they actually had. Like, they don't really say much about their childhoods. Um, and they do use their real names, like their last names. Even Ringo even is even referred to as Richard Starkey at some point. That's his real name. Yeah, but looking back, it seems to me that this universe has a different version of the Beatles than what they actually were. But I will say their personalities were on point. The songs, you got to talk about the songs. They're the Beatles. They're a music group. You got to talk about the songs. So the entire A side of their Hard Day's Night album is songs from this film, including A Hard Day's Night and Can't Buy Me Love and If I Fell and I Love Her. Yeah, all those songs are from the film. And I just remember, actually, I had heard Can't Buy Me Love and A Hard Day's Night long before watching this for the first time, but the rest of the songs I heard watching this for the first time. It was really interesting, like just to hear Beatles songs that weren't exactly hits but really should have been. Especially I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. My dad loves that song. We listened to the album one day and that song came on and he said, "Hidden Gem #1." Yeah, there were like 2 or 3 hidden gems in there and that was one. I remember so clearly when And I Love Her played in the movie for the very first time that I saw it anyway. I was sitting there doing my homework or something and I had the movie on just for something to listen to. And the song started playing and I just stopped my work and I'm just staring at the screen, listening to the song with my face like this. I was mesmerized. That song is so beautiful. And I do remember one funny thing that happened when I was younger and I was watching it. My dog Milty was still alive then. It was the scene where the Beatles first arrived at the television studio and they get on the stage to practice and they sing If I Fell, and the minute the song started, Milty looked up at the TV screen and he didn't turn his head away from the screen until the song ended. So even dogs are Beatles fans sometimes. So I guess you can tell from everything I'm saying here that I like this movie a lot. It's really simple in humor and in story, but it's unbelievably entertaining because it's the Beatles! I love those guys so much. And they made other movies and you can expect reviews of those in the future. But A Hard Day's Night is easily the best one. I love it. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all later. Bye!